The doorbell rang at exactly 11:47 p.m. I knew the time because I'd been staring at my phone, debating whether to order takeout when 3 shadows appeared through the frosted glass of my front door. My name is Reagan, and I hadn't seen my family in 10 years. But I knew it was them before I even opened the door. There's something about the way trauma makes your body react. My hands got clammy, my throat tight. The same way I felt that night when I was 18. I took my time walking to the door, heels clicking against hardwood floors. Let them wait in the rain. When I opened it, they looked exactly as pathetic as I'd imagined. Mum's mascara running down her cheeks, Dad's shoulders slumped instead of squared, and Nina, my perfect little sister, wearing last season's clothes and desperate eyes. "Reagan," Mum whispered, reaching for me. I stepped back. "What an unexpected surprise," I said, my voice honey-sweet with poison. "Come in. You're dripping all over my welcome mat." They shuffled in, looking around my penthouse apartment with poorly concealed shock. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the minimalist furniture, the view of downtown, everything screamed success. Everything they said I'd never achieve. "You've done well for yourself," Dad managed, his voice gruff. The same voice that once told me I was worthless. "Sit," I said, gesturing to my white leather sofa. They hesitated, probably worried about their wet clothes. "Don't worry about the couch, I can afford another." Nina winced. "Good. We need your help," Mum said, wringing her hands. We wouldn't ask if we had anywhere else to turn. I walked to my safe, punching in the code with deliberate slowness. The sound echoed in the tense silence. Inside, right at the front, was a yellowed piece of paper I'd kept for 10 years. I'd framed it, actually. A little reminder of where I came from. "Before we discuss why you're here," I said, returning to stand before them, "I thought we might take a walk down memory lane." I placed the framed note on the coffee table between us. Dad's face went pale. "Remember this?" I asked, a snooze. "Your handwriting hasn't changed, Dad. Neither has your eloquence. Should I read it out loud?" "Reagan, please," Mum interrupted. "We were different people then. We made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I laughed, picking up the frame. "Let's see. Reagan, your constant defiance and inability to follow rules leave us no choice. You have until morning to leave. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You brought this on yourself." Nina started crying. Silent tears, just like when we were kids and she'd watch Dad yell at me. Always watching, never helping. "I was 18, I continued, setting the frame down carefully. It was raining then, too. Funny how things come full circle, isn't it? "We did what we thought was best," Dad said, but his voice cracked. "Best for whom? Best for Nina? Your perfect daughter who could do no wrong? How's that working out for you now?" Thunder crashed outside, making Mum jump. I walked to my wine fridge and pulled out a bottle of Bordeaux. The same kind Dad used to save for special occasions. Occasions that never included me. "Would anyone like a glass?" I asked, pouring one for myself. "No? More for me then." "Reagan," Nina spoke for the first time, her voice small. "We're in trouble. Real trouble. We need money?" I took a slow sip of wine. Isn't that ironic? The family that threw me out with nothing but a duffel bag now needs my help. "Please," Mum whispered, "just hear us out." I sat in my favourite armchair, crossing my legs. My Louboutins caught the light. Another little reminder of how far I'd come from that rainy night, with nothing but a bag and a note. "Oh, I'll hear you out," I said, smiling. "I've waited 10 years to hear you out, but first I want you to look at that note again. Really look at it, because everything that happens next, you brought this on yourself." Dad's hands were shaking. Mum couldn't meet my eyes. Nina stared at her lap, shoulders hunched. Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside, Inside, the storm was just beginning. "So," I said, raising my glass in a mock toast, "who wants to start?" The silence stretched between us like a rubber band ready to snap. 10 years of pain, rage, and carefully planned revenge all led to this moment. They had no idea what was coming, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. "It was Jonathan," Nina blurted out, mascara streaking down her face. He took everything." I took another sip of wine, letting the silence stretch. "Jonathan, your perfect husband, the one Mum said would take care of you forever. He started this investment company," Dad cut in, his voice rough. "Biotech, said it was guaranteed returns. We put in our savings, our retirement." "Everything," Mum whispered. I thought back to my first night alone 10 years ago. The homeless shelter smelled like bleach and despair. I'd curled up on a thin mattress, clutching my duffel bag, wondering how I'd survive. That's where I met Sophia. She was volunteering, serving soup. She took one look at me and said, "You're too smart to be here long." She gave me a job at her startup the next day. Minimum wage, but it was a start. "How much did you lose?" I asked, pulling myself back to the present. 400,000, Dad admitted, plus the house equity. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The sound bounced off the windows, sharp and cold. 400,000? That's what you had saved while I was eating at soup kitchens? My phone buzzed. Speaking of, it was Sophia. I held up a finger to silence whatever excuse Mum was about to make and answered. "Reagan, have you seen the news about Helix Biotech?" Sophia's voice was urgent. "I'm looking at 3 of its victims right now," I replied, watching my family squirm. "What's up?" "Nina's name is coming up in the investigation. She might have known—" "I'll call you back," I cut in, setting my phone down slowly. I turned to my sister. "Nina, darling, want to tell me what you knew about Jonathan's little scheme?" She went pale. I didn't. "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "Not in my house. Not after everything." Nina burst into tears, real ones this time. "He told me it wasn't exactly legal, but he promised we'd be rich. He said everyone does it. It's just business." "Nina," Mum gasped, "you knew." "Oh, this is perfect," I said, standing to pour more wine. "The golden child knew she was scamming her own parents. Did you know she was scamming others too, Mum? Other families?" Dad stood up suddenly. "We didn't come here to be attacked." "Sit down," I commanded. He did, deflating like a punctured balloon. "You came here because you're desperate, because your perfect daughter and her perfect husband ruined you, because the daughter you threw away is your last hope." My phone buzzed again, a text from Atakus. "Everything's in place. Green light." I smiled, typing back a quick, "Yes." "I was 17 when you got married," I said to Nina. "Remember? You were the beautiful bride at 19. Mum spent 40,000 on your wedding. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs trying to afford community college." "Reagan, please," Mum tried again. "We know we made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I cut her off. "Let me tell you about mistakes. Remember Sophia Richards, the woman who saved me when you threw me out? She taught me everything about business, about money, about trust." I walked to my window, looking out at the rain-soaked city. "She also taught me about revenge, about patience, about waiting for the perfect moment." "What do you mean?" Nina asked, voice trembling. "I mean, dear sister, that I've known about Jonathan's scheme for months. I mean that while you were all living your perfect lives, I was building an empire. I mean that karma's finally come calling, and I'm here to collect." My phone rang again. This time I put it on speaker. "Miss Tucker?" A man's voice filled the room. "This is Detective Morris. We need to speak with your sister Nina regarding the Helix Biotech investigation." We understand you have information that could be relevant. Nina made a choking sound. Mum started crying again. Dad just stared at me, finally understanding. Of course, Detective, I replied smoothly. My sister is actually here with me now. Should I have her come down to the station, or would you prefer to send someone to my address? We'll send someone over, he said. Thank you for your cooperation. I ended the call and looked at my shattered family. You have about 20 minutes before the police arrive. Shall we discuss terms? Terms, Dad croaked. Yes, terms, because I can help you. I can make this all go away. I sat back down, crossing my legs. But this time, I'm the one making the rules. This time, I'm the one deciding who stays and who goes. The rain kept falling outside, but inside my apartment, the only sound was Nina's quiet sobbing. Everything was falling into place, exactly as I'd planned. So, I said, raising my glass again. Should we begin? I thought we could have dinner, I announced the next evening, watching my family file into my dining room. For old time's sake. The table was set perfectly. White linens, crystal glasses, silver settings. A little reminder of the formal dinners Mum used to host, where I was always seated at the far end, away from important guests. You've learned to cook? Mum asked, trying to sound pleasant. Among other things. I gestured to their seats. I had my chef prepare something special. Each course has a theme. The doorbell rang. Ah, right on time. Atakus walked in, tall and imposing in his tailored suit. Sorry I'm late, he said, though he wasn't late at all. Everyone, this is Atakus, my business partner. I watched Dad's face carefully. He's also my company's legal counsel. Pleasure, Atakus said, his smile sharp as he took his seat. I've heard so much about you all. The first course arrived, a small burnt piece of toast on an expensive plate. What's this? Nina asked, poking at it. Burnt offerings, I said cheerfully. Remember when I tried to make breakfast for Mum's birthday, Dad? I was 12. You said I couldn't do anything right, then made me eat the burnt toast while everyone else had pancakes. Mum's hand trembled as she reached for her wine. The second course was a half portion of pasta. Second place, I announced, like when Nina sabotaged my science project in 8th grade and I had to present a half-finished experiment. You were so disappointed in me, Mum. Remember? Reagan, Dad warned, but his voice held no authority anymore. Is this really necessary? Mum asked. Oh, but we're just getting started, I smiled. Atakus, did you bring those papers? He pulled out a folder. The application came across my desk this morning, actually. Dad went still. What application? Your job application, Dad. To Morton Industries? I leaned forward. Did you know I own that company? The colour drained from his face. That's impossible. I bought it last year, I said. When I saw your application, I had to laugh. You wrote that you're great with young people, that you believe in mentoring the next generation. Reagan, please, Mum interrupted. We're trying to make amends. Are you? I cut her off as the main course arrived. This is called family roast. Fitting, isn't it? Nina pushed her plate away. I can't eat. You should, Atakus said mildly. The police interview tomorrow might be long. About that, I continued, cutting my meat precisely. I can make the investigation go away. I have influence, but it'll cost you. We don't have any money left, Dad snapped. Oh, I don't want money. I dabbed my lips with the napkin. I want something else entirely. What? Nina whispered. Public accountability, a formal apology, maybe even a little media coverage about how the perfect Tucker family isn't so perfect after all. Mum dropped her fork. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Atakus, the contract. He pulled out another document. It's quite straightforward. You admit what you did, throwing Reagan out, the years of emotional abuse, the favoritism. In return, she'll help settle the legal troubles and provide modest financial assistance. This is blackmail, Dad growled. No, I corrected. This is karma. This is consequences. This is what happens when you throw away your daughter and she builds herself into someone you have to beg for help. Dessert arrived. A single scoop of vanilla ice cream, melting slowly. Remember this, Nina? The day I got accepted to college? Before you destroyed my acceptance letter, you ate my celebration ice cream. Told Mum I was lying about having any. Nina started crying again. How did you know? I know everything. I've been watching, waiting, planning. While you were living your perfect life, I was building an empire specifically for this moment. You're crazy, Dad said, but his voice cracked. No, I'm successful. I'm powerful. I'm everything you said I'd never be. I stood up, smoothing my dress. The contract is simple. Sign it, and I'll help. Refuse, and I shrugged. Well, I hear prison food isn't great, Nina. You do that to your own sister? Mum asked. My own sister? Like you did things to your own daughter? I laughed. You taught me family means nothing, remember. Atticus slid the contract across the table. You have until midnight to decide. And if we sign, Dad asked, then tomorrow we start the process of your public redemption. It'll be humiliating, of course, but isn't that better than bankruptcy, than prison? I walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Behind me, I heard the rustle of papers, whispered arguments, muffled sobs. Tick, tock, I said softly. Time's running out, just like it did for me that night in the rain. The sound of a pen scratching paper told me everything I needed to know. Phase 1 was complete. I need a car, Nina announced the next morning, strolling into my office like she owned it. Nothing fancy, just something reliable? I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing the signed contract. Excuse me? Well, since you're helping us, she gestured vaguely. And you have so much money now. I closed my laptop slowly. Sit down, Nina. She perched on the edge of the chair, smoothing her wrinkled designer dress. Even in poverty, she was trying to maintain appearances, just like Mum taught us. Let me tell you a story, I said, standing to pour coffee, about how I got my first car. Reagan, I worked as a janitor, I continued, ignoring her. Night shift at an office building. The same building I now own, actually. Minimum wage, but I saved every penny. Took the bus for 2 years. I handed her a cup. She grimaced at the lack of cream or sugar. Meanwhile, you got a BMW for your 18th birthday, the same week Dad threw me out. We were different people then, she protested. You said you'd help us. Help you avoid prison? Yes. Buy you a car? No. I sat back down. But since you're here, let's discuss something else. Like this. I pulled out a framed diploma from my desk drawer. Nina's face went white. Is that my college diploma from the school that sent me an acceptance letter 10 years ago, the one that mysteriously disappeared? Reagan, save it. I set the frame on my desk. I worked full-time and studied at night for 4 years to earn this. While you were spending Dad's money and marrying Jonathan, I was cleaning toilets and attending classes. My phone buzzed, a text from Mum. We need to discuss living arrangements. I laughed out loud. Oh, this is precious. Mum just texted asking about where you're all going to live. Well, we can't stay in a hotel forever, Nina said, a hint of her old entitlement creeping in. No, you can't, especially since I own that hotel. I smiled at her shock. Surprise! I own a lot of things in this city. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She accused. Making us suffer? Enjoying it? No, this isn't about enjoyment, Nina. This is about justice. I stood up and walked to my office window. You know what the worst part was? Not the hunger, not the exhaustion. It was knowing my own sister watched me suffer and did nothing. I was young. You were cruel, I corrected. You were Mum and Dad's perfect daughter, and you loved it. You loved watching me fail. Nina started crying again. She always cried when confronted. What do you want from me? I want you to admit it, all of it, not just the letter, everything. She wiped her eyes, smearing expensive mascara. Fine. Yes, I destroyed your letter. Yes, I told Mum you stole money from her purse when it was me. Yes, I let them throw you out because I was jealous. Jealous? I turned back to her. Of what? You were stronger than me, smarter. You didn't need their approval like I did. Even now. She gestured around the office. You built all this without them. I couldn't even keep my marriage together. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Atakus. Press release is ready. Green light? Perfect timing, I murmured, then addressed Nina. The press release about your family's public apology goes out in an hour. It details everything, the abuse, the favoritism, the fraud. Are you ready for that? She slumped in her chair. Do I have a choice? There's always a choice, Nina. Just like you had a choice 10 years ago. What about Mum and Dad? They signed the contract. Their choice is made. I walked to my office door. Now, about that car request, forget it, she mumbled. I get it. No, you don't, but you will. I opened the door. The press will be at the hotel at noon. Wear something appropriate for your public confession. She stood on shaky legs. Reagan, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't pay bills, Nina. Sorry doesn't feed a hungry 18-year-old. Sorry doesn't erase a decade of trauma. I pointed to the diploma. But this? This is what sorry looks like. This is what survival looks like. As she reached the door, I called after her. Oh, and Nina, tell Mom I'll discuss living arrangements after the press conference. I have some interesting ideas about that. She nodded and left, shoulders slumped. I watched her walk away, remembering how she used to strut through high school halls while I hid in bathroom stalls. My phone buzzed one more time. Sophia. Are you sure about this? I typed back quickly. Too late to stop now. The storm is here. And like that night 10 years ago, I could feel the rain coming. But this time, I was the one with the umbrella. The conference room felt smaller, with all the cameras pointed at my family. Mom kept adjusting her collar. Dad stared at his hands, and Nina looked like she might faint. I stood at the podium, every inch the successful businesswoman in my tailored suit. Thank you all for coming. Today, my family has something they'd like to share. Atakus handed out copies of what we'd labelled the accountability contract. I watched the reporters' eyes widen as they scanned the document. Mum, I gestured to the podium. Would you like to start? She walked up like she was heading to her execution. I haven't been a good mother. Louder, please, I said sweetly, for the cameras. I was cruel to my eldest daughter, she continued, voice shaking. We threw her out at 18. We told her she was worthless. We were wrong. A reporter raised his hand. Mrs. Tucker, why are you making this public statement now? Because, I cut in, accountability shouldn't be private when the abuse wasn't. Dad stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. We don't have to. Sit down, Atakus said quietly. Or shall we discuss the fraud charges? The reporters scribbled frantically. I could already see the headlines. Prominent family's dark secret exposed. Nina, I called, your turn. My sister stumbled to the podium, clutching her prepared statement. I knew about my husband's investment fraud, she read. I knew he was scamming our parents and others. I stayed quiet because I wanted the money. The room erupted with questions. Camera flashes turned Nina's tears into sparkles. And, I prompted, and I sabotaged my sister's future multiple times out of jealousy. A reporter stood up. Reagan, how do you feel about all this? I stepped back to the podium, placing a comforting hand on Nina's shoulder that made her flinch. I believe in second chances. That's why I'm helping my family through this difficult time, financially and legally. You're dropping the charges? Someone called out. Let's just say I have influence with the relevant authorities. I smiled, in exchange for this public accountability. Dad tried to stand again, but Mum grabbed his arm. They'd figured out the game now. Every outburst just made better headlines. I have copies of the original eviction notice, I continued, as well as documented evidence of the systematic abuse. But this isn't about punishment. It's about growth. After the press conference, we gathered in my office. Dad finally exploded. You humiliated us, he shouted. This will ruin us socially. Like you ruined me? I asked calmly. Besides, this was just phase 1. Phase 1, Mum whispered. I handed them each a new contract. Phase 2 is about where you'll live. They read in silence. Nina gasped first. The homeless shelter? She asked. You want us to live in a homeless shelter? The same one I stayed in, I confirmed. For at least 6 months. You'll volunteer there too. Consider it community service. This is insane, Dad growled. No, this is karma. I perched on my desk. Sign or I release the evidence about Nina's involvement in the fraud. Your choice. You'd send your own sister to prison, Mum asked. You threw your own daughter into the street, I countered. At least I'm offering a roof. Nina grabbed a pen. I'll sign. Nina, Mum protested. What choice do we have? Nina snapped. She owns us now, just like you once owned her. I watched them sign one by one. With each signature, I felt lighter, as if their power over me was finally, truly breaking. The shelter expects you tonight, I said, collecting the contracts. Pack light. They have strict rules about personal belongings. You're really going through with this, Dad said, more statement than question. Did you think the press conference was the end? That was just the beginning. I walked to the door. Oh, and one more thing. Sophia runs that shelter now. She's excited to meet you all properly. Their faces showed the final realization. Every detail of their humiliation had been carefully orchestrated. You'll destroy us, Mum whispered. No, I corrected. I'm giving you exactly what you gave me. A chance to rebuild from nothing. To prove you're worth saving. I opened the door. The only difference is, I'm being kinder about it than you were. They filed out, broken but compliant. Atakus watched them go. Phase 3? He asked quietly. I nodded, thinking of the foreclosure notice on their house that would arrive tomorrow. Everything in its time. Let them adjust to homelessness first. After all, I'd learned from the best about how to destroy someone completely. The only difference was I was doing it with contracts instead of cruelty. And I was just getting started. You've gone too far, Sophia said, pacing my office a week later. The press conference was one thing, but this? She tossed a newspaper on my desk. The headline read, Disgraced Family Serves at Local Shelter, a Story of Redemption. They deserve it, I replied, not looking up from my computer. Do they? Or are you becoming exactly what they were? Sophia stopped pacing. You sold your pain twice, Reagan. Once when you lived it. Now by destroying them with it. They're fine. They have a roof. Food. Nina lost her custody hearing yesterday. Sophia cut in. That made me look up. What? The judge cited the public fraud admission. She can't see her daughter for 6 months. Sophia leaned on my desk. Did you know she had a child? I hadn't. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. That's not my fault, I said, but my voice wavered. No? Your press conference, your contracts, your revenge? Sophia shook her head. There's always collateral damage in war, Reagan. Always innocent casualties. My phone buzzed, a text from Nina. Can we talk, please? She's texting me now, I told Sophia. Answer it. Face what you've done. I called Nina instead. She picked up on the first ring. Reagan? Her voice was raw. I need to tell you something. If this is about the custody hearing, I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air like smoke. I put the phone on speaker, letting Sophia hear. How far along? I asked. 12 weeks. I found out just before everything. She started crying. I have nowhere to go, Reagan. The shelter isn't safe for a pregnant woman. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me. I can't even see my first child. Sophia gave me a pointed look. Come to my office, I said finally. We'll talk. After I hung up, Sophia sat across from me. Remember what I told you the day you left the shelter? About how revenge brings consequences? You said it changes you, I recalled, that it makes you hard. Look in the mirror, Reagan. Really look. Are you proud of what you see? Before I could answer, Nina knocked. She looked terrible. Pale, thin, dark circles under her eyes. The shelter uniform hung loose on her frame. Sit, I said, gesturing to the chair. She sank into it like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. I'll leave you two, Sophia said, standing. At the door, she turned back. Remember, Reagan, you can't unring a bell, but you can choose when to stop ringing it. Once we were alone, Nina spoke first. I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for my children. Both of them. Why should I help? But the words lacked their usual venom. Because you're better than us, she whispered. Because you built yourself up instead of tearing others down. Because you're not Mom and Dad. I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city below. Tell me something true, Nina. Something you've never told anyone. I was relieved, she said after a moment, when they threw you out, because it meant I could stop competing with you, stop feeling inadequate next to you. She took a shaky breath. But it didn't work. You succeeded anyway, and I failed at everything. My marriage, motherhood, even being a decent sister. I turned back to her. Another truth. I'm scared, she admitted, not of you, but of becoming Mum, of doing to my children what she did to us. That hit home. Wasn't I becoming exactly what I hated? One more truth, I said quietly. I miss my sister, the one who used to read me stories when I had nightmares, the one who took the blame when I broke Mum's vase, the one I betrayed because I was too weak to stand up to them. I sat back down, suddenly tired. The shelter isn't safe for a pregnant woman. No. And your daughter needs her mother. Yes. I picked up my phone and texted Atakus. Pause, phase 3. New plan needed. I have a condo, I said finally, in the quiet part of town, 3 bedrooms. Hope flickered across Nina's face. This isn't forgiveness, I warned, that this is damage control. I understand. And you'll still have to earn your way back, all of you. She nodded, hands protectively over her stomach. Go back to the shelter, pack your things. Atakus will pick you up in an hour. I turned back to my computer. And, Nina, don't make me regret this. After she left, I sat in the silence of my office, thinking about Sophia's words, about bells that couldn't be unrung, about becoming the very thing you're fighting against. My phone buzzed again. Atakus, sure about this? I wasn't, but for the first time since this started, I wasn't sure about any of it anymore. I want to show you something, I told my family as we pulled up to their old house. The suburban home looked tired now, paint peeling, grass overgrown, just like them, Why are we here? Dad asked from the back seat. A month in the shelter had stripped away his authority, left him looking older and smaller. Because this is where it ended, I said, parking in the driveway. And this is where it needs to end again. We got out of the car. Nina waddled slightly, her pregnancy starting to show. Mum kept touching the cheap fabric of her shelter-issued jacket, like she couldn't believe she was wearing it. The bank's foreclosing, Dad said, staring at the house. We can't pay the mortgage anymore. I know. I pulled out a folder. Because I bought the mortgage. They all turned to look at me. You what? Mum whispered. Last month, right before you showed up at my door. I walked to the front steps, the same ones I'd descended with my duffel bag 10 years ago. I knew you'd lose it eventually. Jonathan's scheme made sure of that. So, you own our house now? Dad's voice cracked. No, I said, turning to face them. I own your debt. There's a difference. I pulled out another eviction notice from my bag. Just like there's a difference between how you did this and how I'm doing it. Nina sat heavily on the steps. More revenge? More justice, I corrected. But this time you get choices. I handed them each a copy of the notice. Option 1. You can fight the foreclosure. Try to keep the house. But you'll lose and it'll cost you whatever dignity you have left. Mom started to speak, but I held up my hand. Option 2. Surrender the house and I'll sell it. Use the money to set up trust funds for Nina's children. Both of them. I looked at my sister. So they never end up in a shelter, no matter what happens. And us? Dad asked. You stay at the shelter until you've learned what it really means to have nothing. Until you understand what you did to me. Mom sat next to Nina, her legs seeming to give out. You're really going to make us leave? Just like we made you leave? No, I said softly, because I'm giving you warning. Time to pack, a chance to say goodbye, all the things you never gave me. I walked up to the front door, unlocking it with my new key. You have 1 hour to collect whatever matters most to you. 1 bag each, just like me. They filed past me into the house. I followed them in, watching as they moved through rooms filled with memories, both good and bad. Mum went straight to her jewellery box. Dad to his office. Nina stood in her old bedroom, touching the walls. You know what the worst part was? I said, making them all stop. It wasn't leaving. It was realising that everything I thought mattered, photos, awards, my childhood, you threw it all away. Like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. We kept some things, Mum said quietly. Show me. She led me to the attic, pulled out a box labelled Reagan. Inside were fragments of my life. Honour roll certificates, baby pictures, the bracelet I made her in 3rd grade. You kept these? My voice wavered. I couldn't throw everything away, she whispered, even when your father insisted. I picked up a photo, me at 16, before everything went wrong, smiling, hopeful. Put it in your bag, I said, if you want it. The next hour passed in heavy silence. They filled their bags while I walked through the house, remembering. The kitchen where Dad would lecture me, the living room where Nina would pretend I didn't exist, the bathroom where I used to hide and cry. Finally, they stood on the front porch, bags at their feet, just like I had. Lock up, I told them, holding out the key. 1 last time. Dad took it with trembling hands. The click of the lock echoed like a gunshot. Now what? Nina asked, and now you go back to the shelter. Except for Nina, you go to the condo. I took the key back. And you start over, like I did. And the house? Mum asked. I'll sell it. Like I said. I walked to my car. The money goes to your grandchildren. So, at least something good comes from all this pain. Atticus pulled up in another car to take them back. As they loaded in, Dad turned to me. "We deserved this," he said simply. "Yes," I agreed. "You did." I watched them drive away, then looked back at the house. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the lawn, just like that night 10 years ago. But this time I had the keys. This time I was the one doing the evicting. This time I was free. The realtor handed me the final paperwork for the house sale. "Just need your signature here?" I stared at the dotted line, pen hovering. Through the office window, I could see the city skyline where my journey had started. My phone buzzed, a text from Nina. "Baby, kicked today. Wish you were here." Another buzz. "Sophia, your parents served dinner at the shelter today. Your dad actually smiled at someone." I signed the papers. "The trust funds will be set up by tomorrow," Atticus said, gathering the documents. "One for each of Nina's children. Irrevocable." "Good." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "There's one more stop we need to make." We drove to my apartment building. In my safe, behind the framed eviction notice, was a memory box I hadn't opened in years. "Are you sure about this?" Atticus asked as I pulled it out. "No," I admitted. "But it's time." The box held everything from that night. The duffel bag, now empty and worn, my old wallet with its worthless student ID, the bus ticket to nowhere, and the original eviction notice, yellowed and creased. My intercom buzzed. "Miss Tucker, your family is here." "Send them up." They entered cautiously. Mom and Dad looked different after 2 months in the shelter. Humbler, somehow. Nina's pregnancy had bloomed, her hand resting protectively on her bump. "Sit," I said, gesturing to my sofa. The same one they'd sat on that rainy night when they first came begging. I placed the memory box on the coffee table. "What's that?" Nina asked. "Everything I had when you threw me out." I opened it, started laying items out. "Bus ticket, $7.13. A change of clothes." Mum made a small sound in her throat. I kept it all. Told myself I'd burn it someday, when I finally got my revenge. I picked up the eviction notice. But revenge doesn't feel like I thought it would. "Reagan," Dad started, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish." I took out a lighter. "I've spent 10 years letting this define me, letting your cruelty shape who I became." I flicked the lighter on. But Sophia was right. I sold my pain twice. Once when I lived it, once when I used it against you. I touched the flame to the corner of the notice. "I'm done selling it." The paper caught quickly, curling into ash in my metal waste bin. "The house is sold," I continued. "The money's in trust funds for the kids. Not because you deserve it, but because they deserve better than what we had." Nina wiped her eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." I closed the memory box. "Mum, Dad, you'll stay at the shelter until you find jobs. Real ones, humble ones, the kind I worked when I started over." They nodded. "Nina, the condo is yours until the baby comes. Then we'll discuss next steps." I sat down across from them. "But here's the thing. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me." "What do you mean?" Mum asked. "I mean, I'm tired of carrying this weight, tired of letting what you did control who I am." I looked each of them in the eye. "This isn't forgiveness. This is release." Dad stood up slowly. "We don't deserve another chance." "No," I agreed. "You don't. But that's not why I'm giving you one. I'm giving you one because I refuse to become what you were. I refuse to let cruelty win." Nina reached for my hand. I let her take it. "The memory box stays closed from now on," I said. "We all start fresh. Not as family, we're not there yet, maybe never will be, but as people trying to be better than we were." "And if we fail?" Mum asked. "Then you fail knowing you had a fair chance, more than you gave me." I squeezed Nina's hand once, then let go. But I think you've learned what rock bottom feels like now. The question is, what will you build on that foundation? They left quietly, carrying the weight of possibility instead of revenge. Atakus watched them go. You okay? He asked. No, I said honestly. But I will be. I picked up my phone, deleted the old photo of the eviction notice I'd kept as my motivation, replaced it with the city skyline view. They taught me I was disposable, I said, more to myself than Atakus. They were wrong. I wasn't saved. I saved myself. They just didn't like what that looked like. I closed the memory box one final time, put it back in the safe, not to keep it close anymore, but to keep it where it belonged, in the past. Outside, the city lights flickered on, bright against the darkening sky, like stars guiding the way forward. Not to forgiveness, not yet, but to freedom. Finally.